Facebook page and our first edition in 2021 of Tim's Corner Live. Tim Terry, Denver Matchett here along with you. And Denver, it's great to be back, albeit virtually. The border is still closed between our two provinces, but we can still meet virtually and have some fun with our race fans. I want to welcome everybody in that's tuned in on the Tim's Corner Facebook page and the Speedway 660 Facebook page, because we've got some breaking news that we just broke here a couple of moments ago. But first, Denver, welcome in. How's New Brunswick treating you?
New Brunswick's doing a lot better than what we were here about a month ago, so that's some positive news. Obviously, I work with Speedway Miramichi. We were expecting to get a winter demolition in this year. I don't know if that's going to happen, but all systems gear towards the 2020 racing season. We're exactly 3 months away from the scheduled start, so it's getting closer.
Yeah, 2021 is getting as close as it can be. And with schedules coming out, I know you guys have had your schedule out for a little bit. Petty International Raceways had their schedule out. There's some rumblings in Nova Scotia getting started. We're going to talk about that throughout the evening. But the great thing about this, want a huge thank you to Paul Strickland Jr. from Vidane TV helping us out on this. Shout out to Paul. Sim 500 is coming up after this broadcast as well. So head over there and check them out if you want to see some virtual racing tonight. But we've also got some, we're interactive. So if you're on the Facebook page, drop us a comment. Let us know where you're tuned in from, what you're excited to see. And we also have some guests coming up as well. So you'll be able to chime in on that. So I know Brent Patterson is watching, want to say hello to him and everybody else that's there. So we want your interaction because that's why we're here. This is why this is live. So drop us a comment and say hello. And we also have the question of the week, and that's been posted on the Facebook page since Saturday as well. And Denver, I know we're going to talk about this later on, but we did have the question of the week about if you had a pro stock car, who would you put in it? And not given any driver that's currently in a pro stock ride that might be part-time. We've got some interesting responses, and I think we got some interesting conversation to have a little bit later.
Absolutely. There is so much talent here in Atlantic Canada, and a lot of guys that we very well could see in a pro stock here in a couple of years. You'll look at in the last year or two the exodus that we're seeing, with Matt Vaughn moving up. The news broke not that long ago. Jordan Vino's set to move up to pro stock. So, but there's still so much talent. Definitely a great conversation starter. And I don't know who to choose. There's a lot to choose from.
There's new late models in new garages. There's all kinds of new things that we need to follow. Some of them we can't break yet. But some of them we'll get to as well. The boss is watching, by the way. Barry's watching, so say hello to Barry.
I see that. Hello, Barry. Hope you enjoy the show. Assuming you can watch. And Barry Richard, Speedway Miramichi.
And we also have an exciting announcement we kind of teased on Legends Nation last week when we were part of the Auburndale Speedway Winter Nationals that we'll get to. If you're a Bandolero team, you're going to want to stick tuned after our first guest. Rob Bootlier says hello as well. Want to see him back in a race car. That'd be exciting to see the 72 car back on the racetrack. Drove that Subaru for a couple of years, but would love to see him back on the racetrack. But I know people are still chewing over the announcement we just had. So let's welcome in our first guest for the evening. And he's got multiple things on his plate. Let's put it, multiple hats to wear. Driver of the number 26, pro stock at Speedway 660, three-time Speedway 660 champion. He's also the most popular driver. To join us, great kid Brent Roy is joining us now on our first guest of Tim's Corner 5. So we didn't break yet. I don't think so. Brent, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tim. We haven't broke it yet, but I think if anybody can break it between me and Denver, we'll probably figure out a way.
This is going to be fun because I think we've kind of spent a lot of time over the winter together. The Maritime Short Track Summit on the local side, but also trying to put together schedules. And we'll get to that in a second because that's the buzzword tonight. But also with the sim racing. I know we called a couple of races together. You've been in the NEP series. I guess we'll start there before we go into your real racing career because I'm sure John Peters and a few others are watching. You scored a big win a couple of weeks ago in the NEP series. For those that are looking at the local side of things and asking, what the heck are we talking about? What are your sim racing forays that you've been getting into?
Kind of a bit of everything, to be honest with you. It's a really nice way to, if you want to hop in a sports car and go around a road course, you can do that, or, stay sharp in a super late model that everybody runs. And, a couple weeks ago, we were racing, trucks at a plate track and scored a win there with some friends. We met in real life. Pushed me to win in that. So it's a lot of fun, and over the winter to stay sharp and keep everything, keep not be as rusty when you get back to the real thing in May. So it's been a lot of fun. And I've met a lot of virtually people online. That heck, if the border ever opens back up, we'll probably see more cars out here for Speed Weekend.
It's been exciting to be with you've been getting your broadcasting skills on too with the Danish Speedway Series. How cool is that to work with Paul Kirkland? Who's blowing that up?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't use skills. I know Tim Terry, but I think Paul sent a message the other night. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing in 4 minutes?" Well, I'm half asleep on the couch at the moment, but if you need me, I'm here. Call right now. It's a lot of fun to do that stuff. It's a lot of fun to try to think on your feet. Me and Denver did a race for you, Tim, a couple weeks ago, and it brings new respect for what you guys do up in the booth to make everything fun and exciting. And I don't know how you guys do it live, every single weekend and do as well as you do. So hats off to you and Wade and, Denver, and can't forget a Hall of Famer down there in Riverside either.
I think we got all the audio taken care of with all the music and everything else. Barry says we're good. So I guess Barry Richard is our engineer tonight for audio. So yeah, you laughed at that, Denver, though. He's pretty good at the racetrack. He's handy, isn't he?
He sure is. We keep everything going. He keeps things in line, everything ready. He's got some new speakers to replace, though, speaking of audio, after the Halloween Spooktacular. So maybe we can use him, Tim, and get him some practice.
Mr. Dixon, is that who knocked him down?
That is correct. I think some fans might have had to change their pants after that one. Speaker coming flying at them, but yeah, Mr. Dixon was responsible for that one.
Ricky Miller is on here, says hello. I know Max and Michelle are on here. So Brent, you did your makeup tonight. I'm proud of you. Brent Patterson is also tuned in saying hi. So keep the comments coming. We're interactive, but we want to talk. I guess we'll talk about your racing career first, Brent, until we get into the big news that just broke here about 15 minutes ago. 3-time champion in Speedway 660, sportsman champion, 2-time pro stock champion. Still looking for that 250 victory, but let's talk about the pandemic year. You come out of that with the car in one piece, that except for the season 250 kind of wreck about halfway through the race. Let's talk about your 2020 season first as a race car driver.
2020 was, as a race car driver, it was a lot of fun because you just kind of went to the track and did your thing and collected a trophy if you were so fortunate to do so. And it was a lot of fun to be able to compete in the Pro Stock Series between 660 and Petty and finally get our Pro Stock down the road. I think it's the first time we've had our Pro Stock somewhere else. So that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of help from Jeff Armstrong at GD Fabrication to, build some speed and build a little bit of a notebook for us there. So when we go back, we won't be a total duck out of water. We had a better car in the Mike Stevens race, but broke a left front hub about 40 laps into the race. Probably about 20 laps before everybody wadded it up off turn 4 when Slon White broke an axle. So in a way, we were fortunate just to come away with the left front hub because a few other guys came away with a car, a body, a lot more stuff. So, but 2020 was a lot of fun. Didn't get a win. So that was a little disappointing, but still had a lot of good runs and, car in one piece, which is really the biggest thing.
And that Pro Stock start at Petty Raceway kind of stemmed from what we'll, I guess, transition into right now, and that's the schedule talk for 2021. It was already announced that there's going to be a Petty and Speedway 660 Pro Stock Series. 4 races, same sort of deal as last year. There's contingency awards, there's all that stuff. But just about 15 minutes ago or so, we had the full-blown schedule for Speedway 660 released on speedway660.com and Tim's Corner Motorsports. And if you're watching on either Facebook page, it's up there. So let's we can go back and take a look at that. But I think Brent's got Paul has the graphic up there. And Schedule wise, Brent, what are you most excited about when you put the schedule together? What were you most excited about when you saw it as not only a promoter but also a race fan?
The biggest thing was starting it off with the Pro Stock 150. Using that first race to really, everybody's got the itch built up over the entire winter, over a pandemic year on top of that. Being able to come out on May 16th with Riverview Ford Lincoln and just doing a 150 lap Pro Stock race right out of the gate is going to be just absolutely awesome. We did kind of did the same thing last year, only it was in July. So we're going to move that up to May, and hopefully the May showers. They always say April showers bring May flowers, but at Speedway 660, the Riverview Ford Lincoln season opener always brings May showers. I know it doesn't roll off the tongue, but it seems to be what it's been. So hopefully we get that, good. But really excited for that. Really excited to see um, Urquhart Construction come back on board with us this year, down August 14th for the Street Stock 100 lapper. That's a new addition to the schedule this year for 100 laps for a street stock race in the middle of August. And pretty excited for what's to come here the next little bit in regards to that too.
Yeah, and that's expanded from 75 last year. And if you missed that, obviously, shameless plug, you can go over to timscorner.tv and watch that race. But when you look at the schedule there too, you've got a sportsman championship to crown this year's champions are coming back for this season. Obviously, with 2020, it's a pandemic season, didn't get to crown champions, but 3 of those champions are coming back. You look back at highlights last year. I think if you look at the whole as a sharpshooter division, I think they really brought it to the table. The gunslinger race, the races on Speed Weekend. There's an extra 50 lapper mixed in there as well on that schedule. Every division has 3 extended races, so that kind of helps too. Is there anything from a race fan perspective that you're excited about? Christmas in July is coming back. The Kids Day is. We get to bring all those promotions back in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of that stuff's up in the air. Like, how do we navigate Kids Day? Giving kids candy. Are we going to be allowed to do that? That was always the biggest part of that particular event. So, depending on where things go, as everybody knows, it's a fluid situation here. 3-4 weeks ago, we weren't allowed to, visit my parents, and now we are. So, it just is what it is. But excited to see if we can get that back on the table, get those fans energized again, and see if Santa Claus will answer the invitation to come back, in July and stuff like that. One big thing I'm really excited for is we're still working out some details, but we're looking, obviously, like everybody's looking for in this tough times, but some marketing partners specifically for that Sportsman 200. That's not a typo. We want to do a 200 lap Sportsman event. The cars can do it. They really can. Basically the same thing as a 150. It's been a while since we've seen a 150, but a break at 100 and then go another 100 laps. It's a tall order for sure, but the technology in the cars has come a long ways, and they did it. I don't know if you remember once, probably over 10 years ago. But hopefully we can bring that back with some marketing help and whatnot. Excited to see the Atlantic Modified Tour come back too. 3 visits in 2021 with 5 races on the table between those 3 visits. So excited to see that. And the East Coast Mini Stock Tour is, again, pandemic permitting, is going to visit us twice this year, rather than just the once. And pretty excited to see those guys come back because they always put on a phenomenal show. So all in all, we got some pretty good things on the table for 2021. And it's not over. Like, just because this is on paper right now doesn't mean it can't change, be tweaked, be added to. Like I said, pretty excited for the next couple weeks too.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I see the Hall of Famer. I think we mentioned this already, but Dylan Langel's joining us in the Facebook chat, so I want to say hello to him. Ashton Riki, awesome to see schedules finally come out. And I know this isn't the first schedule. I don't want to say this week because I know there's been rumblings of another racetrack releasing a schedule this week. So we don't want to leave it. We don't want to put anybody on the hot spot, but I think there is one more schedule coming out this week. Dave Oblinas, Riverglade International used to be Twin 100s the same night for years. So there's been 200 lap races. It's, the format, and I'm assuming with the 150s that we used to have, Brent, there was a halfway break in there too. So I'm assuming there's going to be something down the road when we come to that Sportsman 200 format wise. But obviously, this is the first look at the schedule. There'll be more information on these events as we go along.
Yeah, for sure. We won't ask a sportsman team to live pit a car just to fuel it. It's not safe, right? These guys you got to open the trunk lid and go in the back to put the fuel in, and it's not worth it to make somebody rush or put in an expensive fuel apparatus to do that one race. So we'll stick that to the 250 and leave it at that. But yeah, we're just excited for that, to bring back that type of thing. Looking at a couple other items here, one of the biggest things that I'm really excited for that we were able to prove from last year is rounding out the season with the Ricky Bobby 150. The first few years that was in the middle of the season, and it proved to be an amazing event. And one of the ones that I think the best way I can sum it up without getting too deep into the weeds on it was, I grew up at the racetrack. I grew up going there, putting on my Jeff Gordon t-shirt and hat and pants, and had the Jeff Gordon jacket to go with the whole nine, right? And you went there and you see all the same people every week, and the stands were packed, and all everybody remembers those good old days that everybody keeps talking about. That Ricky Bobby event, the first or the second year that we did it, was the first time I walked in the facility and had that same feeling again. So really excited to have that event. Mike and Randy and the team over there do an amazing job helping putting that on. It wouldn't exist without them to start with, but it wouldn't be 5% of what it is now without those guys. So I really owe a lot to those guys. But really excited. I think that's the best way to put an exclamation point on the 660 schedule for 21.
I think it's the best pro stock type feel big race event that's not a pro stock race. There's going to be no pro stocks on the grounds that day. The pro stocks are off that day. They were last year. I think, and Denver, you were there last year. You can attest this because I was at Riverside. You can attest to being there and having that big race feel and putting that spotlight on the street stock division as it is.
Absolutely. That was such a huge event. I've been to all three Ricky Bobby races, and like Brent said, those first two were incredible to begin with. And then this year, you had the perfect storm, and at the end of the year where the temperatures were cooler, it drew a lot of cars. There was over 30 street stocks. It was a phenomenal show, big race feel all the way. The grandstands were full, and 660, Brent, that you guys haven't really run past Labor Day weekend, I don't think, in a number of years, possibly since the Roy family purchased the facility. So that was really your first foray to a September event post speed weekend, and it was a huge success. And hats off to all of you guys. Obviously, like you said, DMR does a phenomenal job. We talk about tracks working together, and DMR has even supported us at the fall shootout in Miramichi a little bit. And our races are back-to-back weekends, so that collaboration is huge to making everything a success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've been a really big part of racing in general, whether it be from the promoter side to the marketing side to back in the day, Randy driving a car himself. You know what I mean? So they've been around it forever, and oftentimes I almost don't want to call Randy at times, because we end up on the phone for about 3 hours spitballing all these ideas that, like, if we could pull it off, we'd have 30,000 people there. So it's it's a lot of fun to really sit down and chat with those guys. I try to go for supper with them as much as I can. Lately it's been hard, but they certainly pour their heart and soul into what has been an amazing division of street stock talent. And we as a bunch of tracks are working together to make that field as best as possible. We used to have to change some stuff to go from this track to that track, and getting on the same page has been a good thing. So looking forward to that here this year. And I told Barry, man, have some invitations sitting there at the RB 150s so everybody can go up the road the next week to, the fall shootout.
And I think we kind of teased about it in the press release a little bit. There is some big news for street stocks coming up the road. It's been kind of teased a little bit, but there's still a couple of contracts, quote unquote, to be dried and I's to be dotted, T's to be crossed. So hopefully in the next week or so that'll be out. And I can tell you from hearing the rumblings from a couple of racetracks, it's big for street stock teams. You're going to want to make sure that that you're a part of it and you book a couple of dates off on schedules this year between a few racetracks around here. We mentioned the Passion Flooring Interiors East Coast Mini Stock Tour. They're back twice, and I kind of joked with Drew a couple of weeks ago when we were going through a schedule that the first race for that series should have been Speedway 660 5 years ago or 4 years ago. It got rained out. It never got rescheduled. Tentatively, this is the opener for that series in 2021. How cool is it to bring them back? You mentioned the no pun intended, the passion that they put into their series. But how cool is it to see? We saw them on Speed Weekend, some of them last year, the Cody Burns, the Dave Matthews, those guys come up. But how neat is it to have them kick off their season on May 29th?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, having those guys come in, they put on an amazing show. Like you said, they treat those cars like, not that any one division is lesser than the other by any means, but the guys pour their heart and souls into those cars the same way somebody would do the same to, a sportsman or their street stock or a pro stock or, an ARCA or truck car, whatever. Those guys pour everything into them and they leave it out on the racetrack, man. They put on one heck of a show. And, you, Tim, have followed them a little bit closer than I, just because they grew up, most of those guys down in the Scotia area racing Hondas, and we don't have the Honda division up here, but when they come, man, like most of the people are talking about that race when they go through the gate at the end of the night.
And I think we can go back to the determination on Speed Weekend. And I think when you look back at Speed Weekend 2020, Dave Matthews and the run that he had and the heartbreak, whatever you want to call that situation on Saturday into Sunday. But I think that kind of sums up the tour as a whole, where these guys, you mentioned it, they put their heart and soul into these race cars. And you're going to get to see that again on May 29th. They're opening up the rules a little bit to domestics. So you might see a couple of your favorite drivers from 660 hop in and go for a shot at winning one of those races. And then they're back twice on Speed Weekend. Maritime League of Legends are back. The Tim's Corner Bandolero Blast is back. You've got the Atlantic Modified Tour 5 times. You've got a lot of really good races and a lot of good racing cards up there. So if you haven't checked out the schedule yet, be sure to head to speedway660.com, timscorner.ca, get signed up. I'm sure we'll be there with the video coverage as well coming up. So racing wise, what does your schedule look like in the 26 car? I know Steve is here trying to still negotiate his contract, so I don't know if you've talked schedule with your crew yet, but can we talk schedule? What do you have planned?
Well, I can tell you for Steve's contract, I'm going to give him a bonus of about 200% of what he got last year. So, he's in good hands for sure there. But yeah, as far as our schedule in 2021, we're looking to race that series, that Pro Stock series coming up this year. A couple races here and there otherwise, but nothing too crazy. Going to try to focus, when we hit the track, focus 100% on that. But then, there's some weeks that we're going to have off. It's going to be a lot of fun to be able to do that. I got two young kids now. One just turned 4 a couple days ago, and he thinks he's 20, and the other one just turned 1, and she's running around the house opening up cupboards and trying to get outside already. So it'll be an interesting summer with those two, but it should be a lot of fun. Like I said, when we hit the track, we'll try to focus 100% on that. The last couple of years, we've been not being able to put as much time in the shop as what we probably should. So excited to be able to do that for sure. And maybe this year I won't put a drill bit through a radiator like I did twice last year.
Well, we won't talk about that, right?
Well, my crew reminds me all the time.
I'm sure they do. Drew McEachran is watching. Thanks for the kind words, guys. Can't wait to come back, and I'm excited for that East Coast Mini Stock Tour season to kick off. We had the live show here a couple of weeks ago with their information meeting. So if you haven't checked that out yet, go to the East Coast Mini Stock Tour Facebook page and go there. Brandon Campbell is watching, saying his two favorite people are on here, which is Mr.
Devin and Brent.
Yeah, that's it. Ashton. So Ashton just moved down from Ontario. He's watching us tonight. I know me and Jamie Maudsley had a conversation. For those that are familiar with the IWK 250, Jamie called it a couple of years ago on Racetime Radio with us. Good friend. So I'm looking forward to having Ashton be a part of our team and hopefully do some camera work and stuff this year as well. So excited there. Drop us a comment. If you're watching us, say hello. We're getting ready. Jeffrey Breen is getting ready to come on here momentarily as well in a few minutes. So he's excited to get on here. We're going to talk some Napa Sportsman Series and Scotia Speed World and his racing career. Brian Suddy says, good evening. Jesse Leclerc is on here as well. Looking forward to making the haul from PEI again. And I hear there's some PEI news coming up the pipe here in the next couple of days as well. So excited to have that come up. And Jesse always puts on a good job. I'm trying to match the beard. I don't think I'm there yet. I'm trying to match the beard. So we'll see what happens there. Before we let you go, Brent, our question of the week, I'm going to ask you, because I don't know if I'm going to put you on the spot. If you had an extra pro stock seat and you wanted to put somebody in that pro stock seat, who would you put in it that A, doesn't have a full-time ride, didn't race in 2020? Who do you see that's there and why? Now, I not to sway the vote, but I know we had a couple of Rick Cashel fans watching a little bit earlier on. So any names that you would want to give a shot to in a pro stock?
Paul Strickland.
Can I answer the question with to start with a question? Is it for strictly to see somebody just light up and have fun and just make their day?
It's your race car.
It'd have to be Richard Atkinson.
Okay.
It'd have to be, because I mean, if you put him in a pro stock and you put a mic in front of him afterwards, the batteries would go dead.
There wouldn't be a mic in front of him. There'd be a mic in the race car.
Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I think it'd have to put Richard in it just to simply see how high he'd be walking after he got out. But yeah, it'd be fun for sure. I don't know if I'd put Rick in it. I don't. The bumpers are pretty thin. I don't know if I'd put.
Wow.
Put Ricky in there. He likes to use the bumper, and I mean, hey, that everybody's got to use a bumper, but it's Don't know if I put Ricky in there, but hey, maybe if 5-star came on board, we'd do that.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll have to look at that. Thank you for joining us. This is the first time we've been doing this, and hopefully everybody is having fun in the chat. And I see Richard is in there. He said he'll take the seat, so
he'll take it. I bet.
Well, he's got a seat. He just needs to take it from a sportsman and put it in a pro stock. So that's easy, right?
Yeah, sure. You supply the pro stock, we'll make it happen.
There we go, Brent. Thanks for joining us. Check out the schedule if you haven't already, folks, at speedway660.com, and thanks for being a part of this first one.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a ton of fun when you came to me and said kind of what you're looking to do, whatnot. I said, sounds like a pretty good way to release a schedule and kick things off right. So, happy to be part of it. Not only from myself, I'm not a big fan of being on camera, but just as far as the racetrack goes, we certainly very much appreciate everything that you do, Tim, here for the not only Speedway 660, but the whole racing community in the Maritime Canada that you do. It wouldn't be a drop in the bucket to what it is now if it wasn't for guys like you and what you've done. So appreciate that very much.
Well, we're just doing what we do. That's Brent Roy, driver of the number 26 Pro Stock at Speedway 660, and the extraordinaire in the tower. We never even told the printer story.
Let's not tell the printer story.
Okay,
we leave that
story.
Okay, so what happens in the tower stays in the tower, right?
Right. Yeah, the printer's gonna go for a ride soon.
Well, thanks for joining us. That's Brent Roy and Denver. We're going to move to our next little piece. Before we go to the question of the day, we want to let Bandolero teams know that coming up on May 15th, first race of the season, we are going Bandolero Blast Racing at Speedway Miramichi. So if you have a Bandolero, the Blast Off returns on May 15th at Speedway Miramichi. So I'm excited for this. This was a huge event last year. Tanton Woolridge taking away the victory. I think we had 7 Bandoleros up there. We're looking to build it. This is the first Bandolero race in Atlantic Canada for the season. So if you have a Bandolero car and you want to shake off the shake off the winter rust, the cobwebs, the whatever's left of snow in the car, whatever you want to use. Come on up and shake it off before the season starts at your local racetrack. Scotia Speed World typically starts next weekend. Petty Raceway starts the next weekend. You're going to have some extra racetracks starting up with Bandoleros throughout the season. PEI usually starts up the Victoria Day long weekend. This is the weekend before. So you're going to want to head to Speedway Miramichi. Barry does a great job. You do a great job, Denver, up there as well. And also, not only are we having the blast off, that race will be the kickoff to TCM TV for the 2021 season. You can watch that race live with your subscription at timscorner.tv. So Bandoleros are back. The TCM TV is back. We've got the Spring Smash back. It's obviously pending COVID and everything else happening. May 15th is going to be a big weekend. And then we just had Brent on here as well. He will be the next day. We'll be going down the road probably to the Riverview Ford Lincoln season opener. So we are looking forward to the upcoming season, starting off with the Spring Smash. What are you looking forward to on that May 15th day?
I'm looking forward to everything, but the Bandoleros coming back to Speedway Miramichi is huge, and you played such an integral part last August in bringing them back to Speedway Miramichi for the first time in 4 years. And really, the way those kids performed, it was a no-brainer to bring them back to Speedway Miramichi. It was really phenomenal. They took to Speedway Miramichi. I don't think any one of those drivers had ever turned a lap at Miramichi before, and obviously, Miramichi is not the easiest track. You have two completely different corners. Turn 1 and 2 has a bit of banking. Turn 3 and 4 is relatively flat. And the surface is 50-some years old. So it's rough. It's abrasive. There's not a lot of grip. And I think the first time Jason brought bandos, we tore 3 or 4 up in practice. And we didn't have a single car get tore up that entire day. There was some close calls, but it just really proved the talent in the Bandolero field. And, it was the blast off last year, but it was in August. This year, it's the true blast off to the 2021 season. May 15th is going to be huge, and I really hope, the Spring Smash, we left off with 60-some cars last year. So I'm hoping we're going to be starting off the year with 60 cars, and I wouldn't doubt it, seeing as the winter demo it could still happen, but it's not looking likely. So, the Bomber is going to be there that day, street stock, mini stock. It's going to be huge, and like you said, 660 Pro Stock opener the next day. That's going to be a big weekend, and really looking forward to it.
I think the only car that broke, I think Danny had a control arm break. Obviously, Mark McMillan had an issue with a motor, or Dylan McMillan had an issue with a motor. But it's the first race of the season, so if you want to run off some tires from last season, or want to do something like that, that would be the perfect opportunity to do so. So we're looking forward to it. May 15th, mark it on your calendar. It is the Bandolero Blast Off at Speedway Miramichi, and we mentioned with Speedway 660, the Bandolero Blast will return on Speed Weekend. So. That's going to be huge. Want to say hello to Andrew Lively, Scott Kenny watching, and Scott's an integral part of Speedway 660 as well with race control. Mark Gautro's watching, and apparently Frankie Frazier's watching. So want to say hello to Frankie. We had some great times in Sydney here the last year, and now a part of the Heart of a Champion Vintage Hot Rods as well, the Hot Rod Classics. Brian Campbell's watching from Quispam Sis. Doug Matchett, somebody that's familiar with you, is watching as well, and our hometown hero award from this year as well.
Absolutely. Doug has played such an integral part in racing, particularly in Miramichi, but Doug is also I don't know if I have permission to break this news, but he is the new president for the Atlantic Modified Tour as of a month ago. So that must be old news by now. But if
it's not, it's new now. Surprise.
Listen, it wouldn't be the first time that Joe Hoyt found something out, Joe knows, but it wouldn't be the first time something got spoiled live on a TCM video for those guys and girls. But yeah, Doug is, I'm really excited to see Doug back behind the wheel. As much as it's going to suck not having him in the tower, he will still be on the radio for the demos, because the way our shows work, the racing is over prior to the demolition starting. But Doug is a great talent. He is really, in the last couple of years, come into his own. And you look 2018, he had 8 podiums in 11 races, which is virtually unheard of. I know he wants to get that Atlantic Modified Tour Championship, but that's a division that's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. And, can't wait to see what Doug can do behind the wheel. I see Michael Cormier, the Ricky Bobby 150 winner. He's watching as well. He's going to have probably another busy season, I am sure.
Yep, absolutely. Matthew Ford's watching as well. Had a blast last year at 660, and Matthew had a couple of good finishes on Speed Weekend. So we hope to see him back next year as well, and hope to see him on the couple of trips over to PEI. Frankie Frazier, great show, everybody. Well, we're about half over. We still got a couple of things to tackle, and I guess the next thing we'll move into that question that we kind of teased with Brent Roy, and it created a little bit of conversation over the weekend on social media. So the question that we asked is that, and it's on the top of your screen, and you can put your comment down below if you haven't already. If you had a pro stock car and you did not have a driver, now you can't select a driver that competed in a pro stock in 2020. There was, the conversation about guys like Brad Eddy and Greg Fay who ran part time. And for this conversation, we're kind of gonna leave them out. Guys that have a pro stock or have access to a pro stock, we're going to leave out of this. So you can't take John Fleming and put him in your race car because John Fleming already technically has a part-time ride. The question was, who would you put in the car? And you and I had a conversation about this earlier this weekend, and I think the same common names came up. But you had a name when we first talked about this deal. And your name came from the LSR camp. Who is your first name that you gave to me?
The first one that came to my mind right away was Curtis Collins. I've watched him since he was in the sharpshooter class at 660, and for me, if I was to own a car, I would want someone that can save their stuff, that's not going to be out there tearing anything up, and it can also wheel it. And Curtis certainly can. He's a champion at 660. He's won the 100 or 150 speed weekend. He's got some big wins. And that entire LSR shop, those drivers that come out of there are phenomenal. Not just Curtis, although he was the first one that came to mind, but Drew Greenlaw would be another one. And Curtis has proven himself. I know Drew didn't really get up this year because of the border situation, which was unfortunate, but Curtis even had a strong run going at the Mike Stevens Memorial the last 2 years. I don't know if he got the top 5 finish or not, but I believe he was running in the top 5. So that was the first one that came to mind. Mind you, that's not the only one that comes to mind, but I think Curtis certainly would be a strong candidate.
And we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. This question kind of popped up last year with the Zero car, when the Zero car came available when Sean Turple retired. And actually, I think Blaine kind of mentioned it on one of the comments that we'd love to have Sean Turple back in a race car. And I agree 100%. Sean left at the top of his game, almost like a Wayne Smith. And Brent Roberts had mentioned Wayne Smith's name, especially after the run he's had in Florida. You talk about some veterans that have left the pro stock ranks at the top of their game. They would be it. But I think the first name that comes to mind, obviously, from being down here and being a part of that conversation, at least the hum and who could be in that car, and it ended up being Matt Vaughn, and that was a great choice coming out of that sportsman division. We see how strong that sportsman division is in Halifax. Braden Langell. Braden was in the tour a couple of years ago, has lit it up with legend cars, NX Winter Nationals Pro Champion from 2020. I think the next conversation I think you'd need to have if you're looking at Nova Scotians is Sam Rogers. There's another kid that's paid his dues, that's moved up from Bandoleros, moved up from Legends. He's ready to move up. He's kind of cut from that same cloth as a Corey Hall. He got in the race car. He's talented without a whole lot of teaching per se. Just got in and could drive the race car, and it looks like it turns left on its own. But you look down the list of comments, Riley Goodwin's name came up a couple of times. Actually, I stopped to talk to Scott Williams yesterday up in Dutch Settlement when I was coming home. We had a conversation about Darren Fleming, and Darren's name came up a couple of times from Chris Dingle. KB Lee, Craig McDonald. We talked about Sam Rogers, Devin Smith, Alex Sheehan, among those, and Megan Perrott. And Megan's celebrating her birthday this week, so I want to say happy birthday to her. The Oblinus girls, Rational Richard. There's a kid that's paid his dues in a 4-cylinder car. And there's the other side of this too. Might not have the money to move up, or might not have the resources to move up. That would be a name I think we talked about. Adam Meehan has been out of the seat full-time for a couple of years, but still has the talent, had the off-road truck last year. Greg always can bring up some great talent. JJ Cusack, Jerome Kehoe. There's another name, Jerome Kehoe, that I'd love to see back in a pro stock. I've had this conversation with Greg Dow a couple of times about if we bring somebody into Sydney to drive a race car, who would it be? And my first pick is always Jerome Kehoe. because the man can drive a race car like no other. I'll leave you with this name, and it came up more than once when we talked about this on the weekend, is Tanton Woolridge. Bandolero obviously lit it up, won at every Bandolero track he was at last year. I don't think we've seen a Bandolero driver hop from Bandolero. Now, given there was an Eastern Super Mini Cup Series starter 4 or 5 in there, but from Bandolero to Pro Stock, maybe except Ashton Tucker. I don't know if there's been any in between. Ryan Messer had a couple of steps in between there. I think that was the last one that went up, and he seemed to turn out to be a pretty good driver.
Yeah, he sure seemed to turn out all right. But yeah, you're right. Really, the big thing, Tim, is you look at the difference between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia and the way the ranks work. We don't really have a true Legends class here in New Brunswick. Petty and Wayne and them are trying down there to grow something, but it's not there yet. So in New Brunswick, you're kind of left with the choice of if you're in a Bandolero, do you move up to a street stock like Riley Goodwin? Do you go up to a sportsman, which we've seen Drew Greenlaw do? Do you take the modified route, which Ryan Messer originally did, won the championship, or do you go straight to Pro Stock? Or do you get a legend and haul down to Scotia for most of the races? So you really see the differences there. Tanton Woolridge, I think, is going to be a star in this sport, absolutely, before long. And you see, Jonathan Hicken, not really retiring per se, but taking a step back, I suppose. Jonathan's probably been the top driver from the island in the last decade. And who's going to step in and fill that void? Obviously, Robbie McEwen comes to mind, but you look at the young talent, and Tanton Woolridge, I would say before long, will be there. And speaking of New Brunswick, there's at least 2 more guys that I haven't heard mentioned yet on that list, Tim. But Michael Cormier and Logan Power. Michael won everything there is to win in street stock in New Brunswick now. He's run well in Sportsman. He's run well in Legends. And Logan, talk about someone that can wheel, hopped in a modified his very first race and parked it in victory lane on top of everything else he's done. So there's a lot of names that, to put them in a pro stock, you are making a safe bet, regardless.
Yeah, his name's come up a couple of times. Garth Bazanson kind of went off the board a little bit and went with a couple of drivers that were or haven't been active in the last couple of years in Cole Tanner and Kyle Butler. And Kyle was a hell of a wheelman in a sportsman car. Cole Tanner was working his way up as well. And his brother Austin ran some Bandolero races 2 years ago in 19 prior to the pandemic hitting in 20. Obviously, anything that comes out of Shubenacadie is got some talent in behind them. So you look at those guys. Riley Goodwin, we mentioned him earlier. His name's come up a couple of times. Brady Kramer's name has come up a couple of times. Pro stock experience. Look at the comments, and there's 2 4-cylinder guys that are in there as well. I want to first talk about Kyle Gammon because he's done everything but a pro stock. He's run late model sportsman. He ran the trucks. He's obviously a heck of a wheelman in a 4-cylinder car. He's run some legend car stuff. He's done everything but a pro stock. And I think if there's a guy that's paid his dues to work his way up at Scotia Speed World through the ranks and has done some traveling, it's Kyle Gammon. Cody Quinn's name has come up as well. Brent Patterson mentions Jacob Logan. There's another name that has been part-time. Would love to see him more on a regular basis. Has run the Atlantic Championships and has done well at that event a couple of years. Former Kings County Performance Rookie of the Year award on our side. So great to see those names. If you have any more, Matt Watson's name came up a couple of times too. There's some really big names. Todd Tufts mentioned himself. Todd, former sportsman champion in the Maritime Sportsman Series. There's some older guys I'm sure that would love to have a crack at the pro stock, but I kind of thought back to Kenny Wallace when he was here a couple of years ago, and he says all the time that Dale Earnhardt had told him there's thousands of drivers, but not all of them can be NASCAR. There's hundreds of drivers in Atlantic Canada. Not all of them can be a pro stock driver. So it's a great conversation to have, and I think it spurred some great conversation. So if you have any more names that you think would deserve to be up there in that role, drop us a comment. But we're going to get ready to hopefully bring on our next guest here on Tim's Corner Live. And this guy has done it all when it comes to working his way up the ranks as well. And his name would be on this list as well. He is a driver when it comes to the Napa Sportsman Series. He is a driver in the Scotia Speed World Weekly Racing Series, and he's sideways right now in our shot. So we might have to get him to turn his camera around the other way. It's Jeffrey Breen, driver of the number 66 car. There we go. That looks better. Big winner at Riverside International Speedway as well. Welcome to the show, first of all. This is our first guest, or first time doing this, so you're a part of the trial run. Welcome into the show.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
We just saw the highlights from the win at the Napa Sportsman Series at Riverside. It's been a few months. Has it sank in yet?
Yeah, it's sunk in by now. It was kind of surreal. It was very exciting to have all my family and friends there, and we didn't really even think we were going to get a race in 2020. So hats off to Donald and George and everybody in the staff for getting the race in. But yeah, I was excited. We run Halifax Friday night. I wasn't even registered for the race that week until like the day before. I wasn't even going to run, and then we threw the car together. We worked all night, and we arrived, and it worked out.
And you come away with that win. And for those that don't know, that might be watching from the province of New Brunswick and might not know the name Jeffrey Breen, you drive on that number 66 car. That's not your race car. You drive for Chris and Bethany McCormick. Let's go back a couple of years. How did that whole deal come to be? Because you were driving your own sportsman car, racing at Riverside International Speedway, and then all of a sudden Chris gets a race car, and fill in the story.
So Chris was crewing with Dave Timmons. And Dave wanted to be out of the seat. He was done, at least with sportsman racing, and Chris bought the car. So one day, Chris kind of come into where I work, and we start chatting, and he said, "Would you like to drive the car?" So at this point, I still had my own car, and had sponsors, and I was gearing up for the 2018 or 2019 season, sorry. And I said, "Well, how about we go run for a championship in Halifax?" That's been my dream for years. And he was on board, so I run Riverside full-time in 2019 with my car, and then I was jumping into his car in Halifax, and yeah, it's been a blast ever since. So Chris and Bethany are great. I can't thank them enough.
And we talk about your start in this, and we have up top that you drove the number 22 Sportsman in the Napa Sportsman Series. You mentioned you had your own car, and keyword in past tense, that car is gone, right?
I sold that car. So yeah, I sold the car in July. At that point, there was no racing in Nova Scotia. Haas bought the car here, Haas White. We kind of talked off and on for a couple of months. And I said, you know what? It was a very hard decision, but I said, let's sell it. And we did. And it was a tough decision. It was the first time I haven't owned my own car in 10 years. So it was tough, but you know what? It worked out. My brother Corey let me race his car for 3 races last year. And Chris let me race his for 3 races. So yeah, I was tough at the moment when I sold it, but I have no regrets anymore.
Now, we don't have Paul prepped with the clip, but there's a famous clip from Petty Raceway this year. You're driving your brother's car, and something comes flying at you. What was it like up there going past turn 2, and you had foreign objects coming at you?
All right, so there's a big wreck. It's like lap 4 or something. And I missed the wreck, but I sheared the left front tire off hitting the curb. So I kind of putt around and I get into the corner, and I see Brady getting out of the car, and I see this object in his hand. I'm like, what's he doing? And I see this thing flying in the air, and it just smokes the window. And I'm like, what in the heck was that? Ended up being a fire extinguisher, shattered the windshield. I sent you the picture. It shattered the windshield. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, Brady's a really good race car driver, but he's a horrible baseball player. But yeah, and I had nothing to do with the wreck. And I hear Wayne Smith on the radio saying, "Brady, you threw that fire extinguisher at the wrong car." And I'm like, yes, he did. So I come to the pits, and we're, looking at the damage and making a list of what we need to replace moving on to the next race. And Corey walks around the car. He's like, "What the hell happened to my windshield?" And I'm like, fire extinguisher just smoked it. And I had nothing to do with it. So I'm innocent on that. So it was pretty funny.
But the second half of that story, because your brother was getting married like the next month, wasn't he? Or this was before the wedding, right?
It was about 2 weeks before the wedding-ish. Yeah, so there was a lot of work to get the car ready for the wedding. I spent a lot of late nights in the shop painting the fender and the quarter panel, making it look pretty, because I didn't want to be responsible for any bad wedding pictures. Let's put it like that.
If you have any questions for Jeffrey Breen, drop it in the comments. Mark Gautreau, Jeffrey's a great guy. You raced with him at Riverside a couple of times. That was a couple of moons ago. Alex Landry's tuned in. I saw him wreck pretty hard on the T-bar at Martalk last weekend. Care to throw anything up there on that?
So for some really crazy reason, I decided to learn how to ski this year. I have no idea why. But anyways, we went to Maritock and we got on the T-bar, and Alex assured me it's way easier than the ski lift. So we get on the T-bar, and man, I fell. I must have made it 5 feet, and I fell right on my you know what. Yeah, and it was very embarrassing. You have these 5-year-old kids just rocking the slopes, and I'm just there falling everywhere. But we're getting better though, so it's pretty fun.
Well, you got to start somewhere, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just want to touch base back to Brady Creamer and the fire extinguisher story. He was so nice to gift me his fire extinguisher. I just wanted to say, Brady, next time I see you, you're more than welcome to have this one. I'm going to autograph it for you as well.
That's great. That's awesome. So you're gonna be back at Petty Raceway though at some point this season, right? So you can kind of deliver that to Brady, right?
Oh yeah, it'll be a friendly gesture. It's all in good fun. Brady's car was he had a rough night, and he had a car that was capable of winning, so I don't blame him to be upset. But yeah, I hope to get back to Petty for at least the Mike Stevens. Yeah, that's my goal.
Brett Patterson wants to know what's your favorite part of racing.
Oof, that's a good question. There's so much that I love about it. I mean, it's too hard to pinpoint one thing. Obviously, yes, driving the car and preparing the car and trying to figure out how to set it up is one part of it. And just, you're always in the shop trying to put the car on the scales, get the bump better. But then there's a whole other side of it, the family involved, the friends you meet along the way. I've made so many great friends and met so many smart and really great people. I love that part of it. Obviously, I love racing. I love driving. I love working on them. If I didn't like working on them, I wouldn't race. I have to work on them. But yeah, I love it all. I can't pinpoint one thing. That's a really good question, but I don't really know if it answered your question, but I love everything about racing. It's an addiction.
We touched on Petty. We touched on Riverside, Scotia Speed World. I know getting that ride with the 66 car brought you back to your roots because you started racing 4-cylinder cars there in Halifax and came close to a couple of wins. You come close to a couple of wins in that sportsman car in the 66. What do you got to do to bust into victory lane in Halifax?
That's a good question. I wish I knew, but we're really, really close. Yeah, we've had some, last, I think it was the 100 lap where we were running third in 2019, and we cut a tire down with like 10 to go. Like some simple stuff like that has happened. But I don't make excuses. At the end of the day, you either get it done or you don't. But we're really, really close. Last year, we got third in my brother's car, and I kind of just jumped in and didn't know what to expect. Then we got fourth at the 66. We're getting close. Maybe a little bit of luck. Maybe I need to be better. I always think I can improve. Every year I feel like I'm getting better. I don't know. We'll find out in 2021 if I figure it out.
We just had Brent Roy on here. We talked about the Speedway 660 schedule. It is out. We're still streaming on the Speedway 660 Facebook page. You've been involved in some of the 150s that have happened in sportsman competition. When you see a 200 lapper on the board, which is coming up at Speedway 660, what are your first thoughts as a sportsman driver when you see that number 200?
Excitement. I think that's awesome. My goal has been to always get to that Labor Day weekend 100 lapper or 150 in Fredericton. And I really hope I get there in 2021. But when I see 200, I think of excitement. I think you have to be smart. I know that extra 50 laps doesn't sound like a lot, but essentially it's an extra 100 laps compared to what they've run the last couple of years. I think you have to save your gear to a certain extent, and you have to be, your brakes and whatnot. But I think that's just great. I applaud them, guys. I think 200 laps would be a thrill.
Rational Richard wants to know when you're joining us on iRacing.
When he comes to Kart Bond with me.
Well, with the restrictions lifting in Nova Scotia, I haven't talked to John yet at Kart Bond, but I think another Kart Bond race is due up here very shortly. So we might have to get if you come down and he comes in and races, does that mean you're getting iRacing?
Deal.
Okay.
That's... And I know we had that question about the pro stock and who would you put in your car, but I mentioned this to Richard a lot. If I needed somebody, if I had an extra sportsman car, I would say I've always wanted to see Richard jump in the sportsman car, at least for a race. I think he's a really good driver.
Taylor Albert is watching. He says, sorry to hear about your father. How was it to get your first win at Riverside with your father in attendance?
That was that would have bothered me for probably the rest of my life if Dad never seen me win at least once. And to get that done at Riverside was very special. You know, my whole family, not just my father, was there. Um, like I said, we were working on the car all night. We ran Halifax the night before. We come home. We worked. I got no sleep. I think I got an hour. That was about it. The race started at 2:30. We got there at 2 o'clock. We jumped in and we ended up winning it. And to have Dad there was very special, and I'll never forget it. And yeah, that's a good question. And it means a lot that he asked that. But yeah, it'll stick with me forever.
If you have any more questions, comments for Jeffrey Breen, be sure to drop them down below. And that was the first race with fans at Riverside this season. I know Riverside is gearing up for a busy 2021. Obviously, Scotia Speed World hasn't released their schedule yet, but they've already said that they plan on going back to a regular basis, pending COVID, everything else. What are you most excited for in this 2021 season upcoming, besides getting the car on the racetrack?
Going back full time. I think that's I want to get back to Halifax instead of running that 15 show season or that 14 race season and competing for a championship. But just to be back, if the race season is normal again, as far as we don't start in August like last year, just to start in May and run every week, I think that'll be great. To have fans back every week. I know Halifax, half their season they had no fans, and the last half they had fans. I think that'd be great. I missed it so much last year, and it was, you don't realize how bad you love it until you don't get to race until August. And I really, really missed it. And I hope we start in May. I hope we run until October, and I'm going to run as much as I can.
You mentioned the fans, and New Brunswick was a little more wide open than Nova Scotia was, at least when it came to some of those restrictions. You raced the Riverglade International Weekend. We talked about that extinguisher that's sitting right beside you, but how cool was it to see those stands covidly packed? We'll use those words. In one of the biggest crowds that Petty's had, they've had to add bleachers since that international weekend. How cool was it to see all those fans there?
Oh, it was amazing. I didn't think we were going to get a race like that in at all in 2020. But yeah, just to roll into the pits, and then you're looking at the grandstands and they're packed and the fans are excited. It's a huge weekend with, I don't know how many divisions are racing, but there was a fair amount over that weekend, and it was great. Full field of pro stocks, full field of sportsmen's. I loved every minute of it. The fans is what make the sport. Without the fans, there's no sport.
Now, I'm going to ask the question, and I'm sure Bill Vasil and Tony Leonard and Lawrence Hopper are going to cringe when I ask you this, but it was the big news last week about rules. The amalgamation between Scotia Speed World, Riverside International Speedway, Napa Sportsman Series. What is your take on that? Have you took a look at the rule packages yet? What are your initial thoughts going forward as a sportsman driver who, and there's not many yourself, Pete Miller, there's a few others that do both. What are your thoughts on this deal, trying to bring everything together in 2021?
I don't think people realized how much work was put into bringing those rule packages together between both tracks. I heard some talk from different, parties between the fall up until the announcement, a little bit here and there. I'm excited. I think the big one was the spring rule. The spring rule, it never really bothered me, just with what we run at Riverside, but I was excited. I think the spring rule was something everybody wanted to see changed. There was issues with the body as well. One track allowing it, one track not. I'm excited. I talked to a lot of guys in Halifax that want to run Riverside, but they don't want to change a bunch of stuff over and then run back at Riverside and Halifax the next week. I think it's going to strengthen car counts. I think you're going to see more full-time guys at Riverside. I'm excited. I think I applaud Bill, George, Donald, Cecil, Ken, everybody involved. I think it's great.
Denver, you've been kind of quiet over there. Any questions? Any thoughts for Mr. Breen over here?
Oh no, not too much. But yeah, I think Jeffrey kind of touched on everything so far. Yeah, no, it's I've been following, watched Jeffrey race before, been to Riverside and whatnot, and that was definitely a big story, that first win at Riverside. So definitely congrats on that, and definitely want to try to get more this year, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. When you get a little bit of taste of winning, it's contagious. You just don't want to stop. So when I got that win, I went and run another 20 races right after that. I didn't want to stop racing. So yeah, it was it was so hard to get that first win. I've been so close for so many years, and to finally break through. And a lot of people don't even know, in that second half of that race, I lost my brakes. And yeah, I had a brake line bust, so I didn't know if I was going to hang on or not. So I think if there was another, and I don't know how Ronnie feels about this because he was catching me, but probably another 10 laps, Ronnie, you probably would have got me because I had no brakes for the last 20 laps. So I'm grateful to get that first win.
We got a question, Tim. Let's go there, eh?
Do you want to ask that, or should I?
I can ask this one.
Okay.
Well, we've seen it before. In the Cup Series, you have Kurt and Kyle, Terry and Bobby. You have a question from Corey. He wants to know, if you two were racing for a feature win, would you lay the bumper to him?
I try to race everybody as clean as possible. I take pride in racing everybody clean, and I race everybody equally as hard. But I race my brother harder than anybody else. I think we would end up taking each other out. Let's put it that way, going for a win. And if it was a 100-lapper, let's put it this way. If it was the Napa 100, yeah, I'd lay the bumper to him. I wouldn't think twice. That's one. You might get one shot at winning that race. So there's your answer, Corey. I'd lay the bumper to you to win the Napa 100 in July. Yep.
So if you lay the bumper to him and there's damage to his race car, do you have to fix it? Did you have to fix the windshield in the car when that happened to Petty?
So I fixed everything else in the car, but I looked at the windshield and I said, that's just below my vision. So we're going to ride this out for the rest of the year.
Bob Landry wants to know if you're planning on Sydney this summer.
I planned on Sydney last year. I talked to you. We were going to go in October, and then the day got pushed back the next day, and I couldn't make it work. But I like to get down to Sydney at least once a year. So yeah, as of right now, I'd like to say yes. I'd like to get to Sydney for at least one of them. I don't know how many races they're going to have, Tim. You can fill me in on that if you know. But I'd like to at least get down for one big one if they're having a 100-lapper. Yeah, I like Sydney. I really do.
Yeah, their schedule's not out as of yet, and I know Cody and Greg are still trying to dot the I's and cross the T's. Haven't heard anything on this weekend's Winter Blast race yet. They postponed it last week because of 4 feet of snow, I think, on the racetrack. The snow drifts were as high as the wall was, and you know how that Sydney steel can reach out and bite you going around that racetrack. So not sure what the ice and everything is going to do tomorrow, but I'm sure we'll have an update from Greg and the boys there as well. So we're getting close to wrapping it up. I know Paul Strickland Jr.'s got a Sim 500 Trans Service Cup Series race coming up. So any final thoughts, Jeff? I know the 66 cars had a couple of blank panels the last couple of years. Give us a sales pitch. Let's sell some panels here. Is there any sponsors that have come on board? What's final thoughts here before we close this all out?
We still got a blank car, and to be honest with you, I like passing cars that are fully sponsored. We're kind of a smaller team, but if anybody wants to sponsor me, hey, I'll take you to the front. And if I'm running at the back, I'm going to look good doing it anyway.
Well, at least you got to show up some of those guys that are on the racetrack too. And we had the question earlier about the Pro Stock deal. If a Pro Stock ended up in your lap, would you take it?
Oh my God, I'm working towards Pro Stock. Yeah, my goal is in the next year or two, I want to try to get a deal together. I want to be in a Pro Stock. I have a lot left to prove. I'm not saying I deserve to be in a Pro Stock. I have a lot left I need to prove in Sportsman. There's some big races that I want to win. There's probably guys above me that deserve getting in a Pro Stock. But yeah, the goal is Pro Stock in another year or two.
Paul Strickland Jr. put the question up on the screen, and I completely forgot about this. We had a question come in about what does it feel like to be, I think, and I don't have it in front of me, but the best looking man at the racetrack. I think that Paul can tell me in my ear who that was that said that.
That was JD Mans. He jumped in, and I'll read it verbatim.
Verbatim? Okay.
Verbatim, sorry, first day. I have a question, Jeffrey Breen. What's it like being the best looking guy at the racetrack each and every week? And that's from JD Mans.
My motto is, if I'm going to run bad, I better look good doing it. So how does it feel? It feels pretty damn good.
I think that's the best way to close this off. Jeff, thanks for joining us. The first time we've done this, so this is our maiden voyage. So thank you for being a part of our pilot project. And I'm sure we'll connect before the 2021 season begins. And all the best. Good luck at skiing. Good luck at that, and we'll see you in May, if not before.
No, thank you guys. Thanks for having me. It was lots of fun.
So that is Jeffrey Breen, driver of the number 66 in the Napa Sportsman Series, Scotia Speed World, all those great divisions, Denver. And now we look forward to, I guess, the next time we do this. We're seeing some of the highlights on our screen. That's Jeffrey at Scotia Speed World a couple of years ago. But now we look forward to our next time we do this, because this is the first time that we've done this TCM live. At least in this format. We've done some sim racing stuff before. We've done some of the live stuff. We've done some of the at-track stuff. But this is the first time we've done this on a virtual side. So if you liked what you saw tonight, put down in the comments, give us a share. Tell your friends you're watching some bench racing, I guess we can call it, on a Monday night. And who knows, this might become a weekly or a bi-weekly thing. Want to thank all of our marketing partners. You've seen them at the bottom of the screen when they've gone down. So guys like Kings County Performance, Larry Somerville, EIT Race Radios, Auto World, Dylan Blankhorn's new rebranded place in Truro, St. Louis Bar and Grill, Paul and Vidane, Speedway 660, Speedway Miramichi, Maritime Car Wash. All these guys have done so much for what we do, not only on the TV side, but also for the sport in general. Doug Jago's Turkeytown Mud Bog. St. Louis Bar and Grill has been huge. Keith McIntosh and supporting us the last couple of years. CB Warren's Auto Care, East Coast Karting. We've got an announcement coming up potentially for the Enduro, as long as COVID kind of allows us to do so. We'll be having the Enduro again this year. We got another announcement coming up on apparel, hopefully next week as well. So there's some stuff coming up the pipe that I'm excited for. Denver, what are you most excited for here in this offseason? Obviously, there's a race that's potentially going to happen in Miramichi if COVID allows. But what else are you looking forward to in this offseason before we get everything going in May?
Oh, there is so much to look forward to right across the board. Like so far this offseason, we're about halfway through. We are 3 months to the day from the Spring Smash. But, I think we're seeing this year the biggest collaborative effort across all tracks in the Maritimes to make the 2021 season the best it can be. And we saw in 2020 just how much potential we have in stock car racing in Atlantic Canada, in New Brunswick, given the rules for what we were able to do. But we're hoping that all three provinces and extend that into Newfoundland and Labrador are able to do that this year. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that continued effort. If you saw today on Facebook, the Center for Speed in Shediac and Speedway Miramichi are going to team up with the Bomber Division, which has been a huge success. So, grow that. That's a huge class. You see the street stock rules and everything that's starting to come together. Again, that's not fully pieced together yet, but expected very shortly. And you see Pro Stock Series between Petty and 660. There's just so much going on. It's been a really exciting off season. I don't know if I've seen an off season where there's been this much energy between the tracks. So a lot to look forward to. I know we got a lot going on up here in Miramichi. You got a lot going on. I will say I'm hoping that Enduro happens. Usually I am tied up with exams and can't make it to East Coast Karting in April, but that's not the case this year. So COVID pending, I am looking forward to being a part of that one, hopefully.
Barry says he can't wait for it either, but I think he was on the racetrack last year, the last time we did it at the 52nd minute when it started to pour down rain. So I don't know how excited he was at that point, but great to hear that he's excited for it to come back. And we're doing some things on the TV side as well. And yeah, we mentioned Ashton earlier tonight, but if you're looking to get involved in Tim's Corner TV, our crew last year, obviously Denver, I think there was 6 or 7 core people that were a part of bringing this to what it is. But we had about 15 or 16 folks that really made sure that we delivered the coverage that we could. It started out 10 years ago. This is the 10th year anniversary. And it started out as a one-man band. It's not a one-man band anymore, as much as I hate to admit it. It's grown. So if you want to be a part of it and go to the racetrack and be a part of something special, whether it's camera production, you don't need any experience, social media, whatever it is, contact us. Let us know that you're interested in it, and we will we'll get you hooked up for the summer. Our first plan is tentatively April for the Enduro. We're still working out the final couple of kinks. Obviously, COVID dependent as well. So be sure there. Want to say hello to Bob Hutchings. Bob is watching us. One of our we did the sim racing deal this year, and we're still doing it Wednesday night. Cheap plug. We're going to be racing with the weekly series, and Bob is a part of that this time around. And great guy to really have a part of this. And I'm glad Bob is a part of our Tim's Corner family this year when it comes to the iRacing side. And hopefully we get over to Newfoundland this year with the COVID restrictions, not being able for us to do that last year, and help us out a little bit. Jack Wilkins is watching us as well, so he enjoys it. If you have a guest idea, if you want somebody on this show, if we continue to do it, drop us a name, send us a message on Facebook, and give us some ideas. Denver, we're open to anything and anything pretty much, right?
Absolutely. That's what helps everything in the sport of racing, especially this, is all the ideas. And there's lots of great ones out there, and we want to keep growing everything from TCM in the sport of racing. And there's a lot of potential, and we want to live up to that full potential across the board.
So we want to thank everybody for watching us here this evening. Thank you, Denver, for being a part of this. I know there's other things you could be doing with your Monday night, so I want to thank you for being a part of this. This has been fun. Absolutely.
This has been a blast. We'll hopefully look forward to the next one. You're the boss in this one. Let me know when what the schedule will be, and we'll have to get some good guests lined up again. Brent and Jeffrey were phenomenal tonight. Thank them for coming on, and big news with the 660 schedule release. That's going to be an exciting summer there. I think we got all the schedules out in New Brunswick, and you said there's a couple more coming from some other provinces this week, so potentially. So lots of excitement.
Yeah, and those racetracks, I know there was a couple of conflicts, and I think that's what's holding up one of those schedules. Racetracks working together. So obviously COVID tentative, but also racetracks trying to work together and trying to get all that together as well. So big thank you to Paul Strickland Jr. When we came across this, I kind of tire kicked the idea to Paul, and I said, "Hey, are you interested in teaching me the ropes and doing this?" He said, "Heck, I'll come in and join you and be a part of the family." So big thank you to Paul. We have the Trans Service Cup Series. For those that are sim racing and esports fans, the Sim 500 Cup Series is one of the biggest fixed setup cup leagues when it comes to iRacing, and it's come to Verdane TV. So you want to head over to the Verdane TV Facebook page and watch that tonight, because that is going to be something special. They're running a 300-mile, 500K race at Daytona to kick off their 2021 season. And it's if you didn't get enough of Daytona yesterday and Michael McDowell going to victory lane, you get some more here. Our next TCM presentation is on Wednesday. It's the TCM Weekly iRacing Series. We have marketing opportunities available for that series. So if you want to hop on and support those drivers, and out of the 50 drivers that we have in that series, I think 48 of them are from Atlantic Canada. There's one or two from Ontario. There's one or two from Illinois. Brent Suggs races with us from the Southeast Super Truck Series from North Carolina. So there's 4 or 5 that are not from here or come from a ways. We'll put it that way. But all that money, portion of that goes back to the drivers and helps them put a little bit of money in their pocket for entertaining us and helping us put on the show. So that is Wednesday night. That is an 8:30 start. Atlantic. Dylan Langell, Mike James will be on the call for that, so they'll be here. And again, we're first time doing the Zoom thing for Paul in a little while. First time for me doing this Zoom thing for more than 2 minutes on an eNASCAR broadcast. So I've got the office half tore apart here anyway, getting ready for next Tuesday. So it's been fun. Want to thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to share this if you haven't already, and tell your friends that you're watching some racing, you enjoy the program, and maybe we'll do this again next week, 2 weeks down the road, whatever the case may be. I want to send a big thank you out to our marketing partners who helped us out as well. If you want to hop on board with Tim's Corner Motorsports, this is a great opportunity to do so, and that's going to do it for us. So until next time, on behalf of Paul Strickland Jr., Denver Matchett, thank you, Brent Roy and Jeffrey Breen, for being a part of this. My name is Tim Terry. Until next time, keep the hammer down, and we'll see you at the track.